Well, good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to the 11th year of the TypeOneNation Summit. It's a real honor and a pleasure for me to be here with all of you today. And I'm very pleased to see so many of you here. Welcome to all of you. We're really glad that you came. My name is Marc Malone, and in a minute, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about myself. But I'd like to start off by learning something about you guys. A second ago, I mentioned that this is the 11th year of the TypeOneNation Summit. And so what I'm wondering is there anybody in this room that was here for the first TypeOneNation Summit back in 2006? Raise your hand if you were here. That's great. There's quite a few of you here. That's awesome. I was there myself as well. And Dr. Marc was obviously there as well. And now I'd like to go to the other end of the spectrum. How many of you in the room today were at last year's TypeOneNation Summit? Raise your hand if you were here last year. That's great. Quite a few of you. It's great to have you back. Obviously came back because you valued last year's session, so it's great to have you back again. And finally, I have one last question for all of you. I'm wondering if there's anyone in the room where type 1 diabetes has entered their lives in the last year. How many of you or someone you love and care for has been diagnosed with diabetes in the last year? Yes, okay, quite a number of you as well. And for those of you who raise your hand, I'm really sad to hear that type 1 diabetes has entered your life. It's a disease that nobody deserves to live with, and it's something that I can relate to. I can relate to how you were feeling. My daughter, Caroline, she was diagnosed almost 11 years ago, back in 2005, when she was 7 years old. And I can remember the feelings and the emotions that came right after the diagnosis. I remember the sadness. I remember the frustration, the confusion, the anger, the fear, and the worry. I think for me, the worry was the worst for me. I worried about everything. I worried about the nighttime lows. I worried about complications. I worried about the future. I wondered how long my daughter was going to have to live with this disease. And I wondered what that life was going to be like. And I felt a strong desire to know at a deep and tangible level, what was being done to cure this disease, or at least make it more manageable to live with, less of a burden to live with. And so when I heard about the first TypeOneNation Summit back in 2006, it was an easy decision for me and my family to sign up, and we were there in attendance. And I remember that day very well. And I think there's two things in particular about that day that really stood out for me. That I didn't necessarily expect when I went to the event. I think the first thing was community. It really stood out to me how important it was to be connected to a community that understood what we were going through. And that was the first time that our family had been around a large group of people who were all going through the same experience that we were going through. And I found it to be a very warm and supportive community. And I got lots of practical advice, and we even got some moral support. So I left that day knowing that finding my community within T1D was going to be important. The other thing that really I took away from that day is I was inspired. It was really inspiring to know that there were so many smart, talented, hardworking people working tirelessly day in and day out to improve the lives of those that are living with T1D. Their presentations were really inspiring, and the progress and the treatments that they were talking about were very inspiring. And I found myself wanting to get involved in the effort to find a cure or make the disease less burdensome to live with. Now, I'm not as smart as the scientists and the researchers that you're going to hear from today, so I'm not likely to find the cure myself. But I am a finance guy, and I know how to raise money. So I felt really inspired to do my part, to volunteer in fundraising. And so wanting to find a community and wanting to do some volunteer fundraising, shortly after that TypeOneNation Summit, I naturally found my way to JDRF. My family got involved with JDRF shortly after the TypeOneNation Summit. We started with forming a Beat the Bridge team, a family team, back in 2007. And quickly we got drawn into the JDRF community. My wife soon chaired the family team committee. I was asked to join the board, where I served as treasurer and president. I just finished my last year on the board, and my wife has now joined the board, and she's chair of the outreach committee. Her name's Malone. I think she's out at the outreach booth right now. And our daughter also got very involved in JDRF. She's been a youth ambassador. She participated in Children's Congress last year, and she loves to just volunteer in the office any opportunity that she gets. And I'm very pleased to announce 11 years later, after her diagnosis, my daughter continues to do very well. And August was a major milestone. It was one of those milestones that I actually worried about when she was younger. She left us and went to college. And of course, she didn't make anything easier on us by choosing to go to school in Washington, D.C., all the way across the country. But she's 8 weeks into it, and she's doing great. And JDRF really still means a lot to her. And one of the first things that she did when she got settled in Washington, D.C., was she reached out to the local chapter to see what they needed. And she's volunteering out there. In fact, she was in the office yesterday helping them prepare for the gala, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. So, over the past 11 years, we've seen the progress that's been made from research that's been funded by JDRF, the type of research that you're going to hear about today. And it's that progress that's being made and that real sense of hope that causes my family to be all in for JDRF. And so as I look back at that TypeOneNation event back in 2006, it's really not an understatement to say that that event really changed our family's life. It set us down the path that we're on today. The community that we've become a part of means the world to us. And I'd hate to think about how we would have gotten through the last 11 years without it. So it's a real pleasure and an honor that the founder of that event that meant so much to our family is actually with us today, Dr. Marc. So I'm going to invite you up to the stage in a minute. But in the meantime, I'm the taskmaster today. Got to keep everybody on task. But I do want to personally thank you for your vision and the effort that you put into making this event a reality. Thank you so much. All right, and of course there's others that helped make this event possible. There were 3 companies that provided us with educational grants. That's Novo Nordisk, Dexcom, and Lilly Diabetes. We're really grateful for the support that we received from these organizations to make this type of an event possible. We also have our sponsors and exhibit sponsors that are listed in your programs that you have in front of you. So please take a look, and we thank those sponsors very much. And finally, we're extremely grateful for our in-kind sponsors. Microsoft, who was grateful enough to provide us with this great space today. It's really great to have companies like Microsoft in our community that give so much to the community. So we're very thankful for them. And we're also thankful for our producing sponsor, JDRF. All right, so let me quickly go through the agenda today, the format. We're going to have presentations in here from 9:15 to noon. And the teens have a teen program that starts at 11. So the teens are going to leave here at 11. And then we're going to take a break for lunch at noon. And during the lunch break, we encourage you to go outside and check out the exhibit booths that are presented by companies and T1D diabetes research organizations. And I ask you to stop by the JDRF outreach and advocacy booth in particular to learn about how you can get involved in the advocacy program. We also have poster sessions that are being presented by local researchers. They have information about research studies that are taking place in our community and how you can get involved in them. And you also have time for one-on-one questions. And the poster session schedule, the listing of topics and speakers and locations you should be able to find in your packet there. Also in your folders, take a look at the rest of the information that's in there. There's also a survey Please take time towards the end of the day to complete that survey. That feedback's important to us to help ensure that we can make this event better and better each year. All right, so let's get to why we're all here. The diabetes epidemic, as we all know, is still ongoing, and there's a lot of researchers around the world, as I mentioned earlier, that are working tirelessly every day to put an end to T1D. And some of those researchers are actually in the room with us today, and you're going to hear directly from them. And so at this time, now I'd like to introduce Dr. Marc and Annie Schultz, and I'd like to welcome them up to the stage. Dr. Marc, as I mentioned earlier, he was the founder of the TypeOneNation Summit, and Annie Schultz is the JDRF mission message speaker. And I'll just tell you a little bit about Dr. Marc as he makes his way up to the stage. He's from Malmo, Sweden. And it's an honor to have him back to kick off our program today. He's the principal investigator of the Swedish Teddy Clinic and Diabetes TrialNet in Sweden, and is the leading diabetes prediction in Skåne, as well as the Better Diabetes Diagnosis Studies. He's held positions at the University of Chicago, Hagedorn Research Laboratory in Copenhagen, Karolinska Institute in Stockholm, the University of Washington in Seattle, and Lund University in Malmo. He and his colleagues have identified diabetes genes, discovered the T1D autoantibody GAD65, and have discerned that antibodies to this beta cell protein can be used to predict type 1 diabetes. And also with us is Annie Schultz. Annie is the project manager for outreach and recruitment for the Diabetes TrialNet Network. Annie came to the T1D research world as a person who is directly impacted by T1D. Her father was diagnosed in 1964 at age 19, and Annie herself was diagnosed at age 21. She and her family members have participated in numerous clinical research trials of type 1 diabetes. Specifically, Annie has participated in trials for the artificial pancreas at the Benaroya Research Institute. She's also a member of the JDRF Speakers Bureau, a volunteer for JDRF Seattle, and a board member for Connect T1D, a local organization that puts on a type 1 diabetes family camp. All right, Dr. Marc.
Thank you.